Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel where today we're going through my NFL Week 14 power rankings after a pretty exciting Week 13 action where there's some very close games, a couple overtimes, a couple games decided on the last play, and of course you got some teams that are just absolutely did not play well, so we won't get breaking down into that here. But before we do, please like and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to me to get that sub count up, and so let's go ahead and get started with the Arizona Cardinals, who I'm still putting in tanking tier because I still don't think they have quite reached bad yet, but they played really well against Pittsburgh, getting away with an upset win, holding the Steelers' offense to really not great numbers there. And their offense played pretty well, especially after getting a couple turnovers, after Kenny Pickett went down, had a fumble recovery that set him up for a touchdown. Trey McBride looked really good. Kyler Murray did pretty all right. And so, yeah, Arizona, I think you're still in tanking tier because I don't think you're quite there yet to getting into bad category. But right now, you're definitely on the high end of tanking. So, good for you there. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons, who at 6-6, they won against the Jets, even though it was a completely ugly game. They're still winning the NFC South. They're still the worst division winner. But them winning really helps the Packers as we don't have to fight for them for a wild card spot as we lost head-to-head against them. So Falcons currently in the division, even though Arthur Smith still continues to bumble his way to victories. Don't know how. That's just how it is. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens, who, to me, are still in Super Bowl contender. They had the bye week this week. Both the Jaguars and Chiefs lost, which really helps them with their quest for number one overall seed. They only got the Dolphins to worry about at 9-3. They're a really solid team. They've been playing well. And so hopefully after this bye week, we can really see how they do. So Baltimore, you're up there. Next up is Buffalo. Buffalo. You guys are still in mid as you're still on the outside looking on the playoff picture. You have a really interesting game coming up against the Chiefs. So especially coming out to bye week, you got plenty of time to recover from the Eagles game. And the Chiefs look vulnerable, so you could potentially beat them. But right now, since you're on the outside looking in, you're very close to being in that playoff spot. You're currently in mid. What more do I even need to say about you, Carolina? You're one of the worst teams in football. I got nothing to say to you. You suck. You're 1-11, and you don't have your first round. 1-12 now, and you don't have your first round pick as the worst team in the league. Yeah, you're bad. You're tanking without the reward of tanking. So, you are screwed. Next, we got the Chicago Bears, who I'm putting in bad. I mean, they're an all-right team. They had a bye week this week coming off of the ugly win against the Vikings the previous week. Not much else to say. Your defense has been playing better, but your offense continues to suck. I don't know why people think Justin Fields can still be the answer for the Bears, because he really hasn't shown that he can lead this franchise in a new direction. So, Chicago, you're in bad. Another team, surprisingly in mid still, Cincinnati. Had an overtime win last night against the Jaguars. Jake Browning looked really good. And, yeah, you guys played well. You got the win. So, it'll be very interesting to see how you guys do down the stretch, as you can still maybe sneak in. It's going to be really tough as there's a lot of teams kind of jumbled in 7-5, 6-6 territory in the AFC. But good on you, Cincinnati. Good on you. Had a good performance. Next up is Cleveland, who still are in a wild card spot at 7-5, but I really do think the wheels are starting to fall off here. They really let that Rams game slip away. They had an early lead, then they had a slight deficit, but then they just absolutely fell apart in the last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter against the Rams. And it's just, that defense, I think, is getting tired, and you need something from the offense. You really do, because you can't keep that up. And I really do think the Browns are in danger here to fall off here really shortly. Especially that defense keeps wearing down the way they are. But right now, they are still in wild card territory because they're still 7-5. But alarm bells are starting to ring for me for Cleveland, so you're still there. Next up is Dallas. Still the top wild card team. But that might change here soon depending on how well they play this week against Philadelphia. Dallas was able to get the job done against Seattle in a really close game. That was a very high-scoring affair. Got won by that defense a little bit there. But Dallas continues to show why they're one of the best teams in the league. Dak Prescott is really solidifying himself in the MVP discussion because he's been leading his offense really, really well this year. Tony Pollard's getting hot. Jake Ferguson, the tight end's been doing good. And CeeDee Lamb, of course, being one of the best receivers in the NFL is really helping out there. But this is a big week for Dallas because they beat up on bad teams. Can they get that signature victory that they need to really establish themselves as Super Bowl contenders? Maybe, maybe not. But we'll see. Next up is Denver, another one of those 6-6 AFC teams that are just kind of there in the hunt. Currently having them behind these two as they did lose to the Texans. Russell Wilson blew that game through 3 interceptions. And they're still in contention, but you got to wonder if they will be able to make it down the stretch or maybe they peaked too early with that 5-game win streak. But Denver's still hanging around there, 7-5, 6-6, outside looking in on playoffs. So next up is Detroit, another team I'm putting in division tier. They got out to a really quick lead, 21-0, but they really allowed the Saints to kind of come back in that game, make it really, really competitive. Ended up pulling away with a victory, but you got to wonder if they can close them out. They really weren't able to do that, so Detroit's still in division tier for now. But you should be fine winning that division. You're going to make the playoffs. You're good. I don't think you're quite Super Bowl contender. Just because you've been struggling these past few weeks in either closing out opponents or having to come back really hard, or just losing to the Packers. So, a little bit concerned for Detroit. Next up, Green Bay having a tier jump into wild card territory. Yes, at this moment, the Green Bay Packers, who that had them bad and tanking a few weeks ago, have moved up the wild card tier after beating the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. And the Packers are looking really kind of a good team right now. Jordan Love has been playing fantastic. The young weapons have been doing well. The defense has stepped up a lot recently. And especially with that schedule coming down the stretch, people should be scared of the Packers. And especially because this is supposed to be their rebuilding year, and we're already competing for a playoff spot. I like what I'm seeing from the Packers. And right now, they're a wild card, baby. They are a wild card. A team that's very, very close to wild card. I'm even going to put them in wild card just because I think they deserve to be up here, except for tiebreakers being stupid, is Houston. Currently sitting at 7-5. They just beat the Broncos on a good defensive effort. And C.J. Stroud and offense did just enough to get by. And the Texans, even though they're not technically a wild card team, I think are a really, really good team. And I think they could make the playoffs, especially with Jacksonville having Trevor Lawrence out for a couple weeks potentially. And so, Houston, you're looking good. So right now, I put you in wild card. Another team in wild card that's technically in this wild card spot with all these 7-5 AFC teams. Indianapolis, very, very quietly having a really good season without their rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson, who looked really good. They're just doing what they're supposed to do. They're 7-5. Gardner Minshew's playing kind of good. Shane Steichen should be up for Coach of the Year potentially for leading this team with all these injuries because Jonathan Taylor's out again into a wild card spot potentially. And so Indianapolis is looking really good. Them in Houston, Jacksonville, that race for the AFC South coming down the stretch, especially without Trevor Lawrence for Jacksonville, could be very interesting. So right now I have you guys here in the wild card tier. Next up is Jacksonville, as we kind of discussed earlier. They lost to the Bengals, went down to 8-4. And more importantly, they lost Trevor Lawrence, who's probably going to be out for a couple weeks at least with an ankle injury. We don't know the extent of it yet. And Christian Kirk also went down with a groin injury early in that game. So, kind of getting banged up a little bit. Unable to beat the Bengals. Let Jake Browning kind of have his way with your defense, which isn't great. So, kind of concerned about Jacksonville. They're still leading that division, but Indianapolis and Houston are right behind you. So, gotta wonder a little bit. A team I'm dropping down to division, Kansas City. Their offense has not looked good for a while now, and I'm kind of not giving them the benefit of doubt anymore on offense because it's been this way all year. If you're not running with Pacheco or throwing it to Kelsey, you're not really moving the ball. And the Packers defense really were able to shut them down, especially in the red zone, only giving up the 2 touchdowns and getting 3 sacks on Mahomes in the red zone, which really helped there. And the defense kind of looked a little suspect against the Packers, letting the Packers kind of have their way both in the ground game and in the pass game, which is very concerning for a defense that's been playing very well recently. And so right now, Kansas City, you're dropping down to the division because I don't know if you're Super Bowl caliber this year just because of the way that offense is. Because you don't have really a number 1 or a number 2 receiver on this team. You got a bunch of 3s and 4s that don't really fit together. So Kansas City dropped into division. Next up is the Chargers. I'm keeping you in bad even though you won just because you won 6-0 against the Patriots. That is disgustingly bad. I don't care that you won. You should not be scoring 6 points against the Patriots. You can't. You can't do that. You're bad, you're bad, you're bad. And I don't care what anyone says. Next up is the LA Rams. Putting here with the Bills and the Bengals and the Broncos at 6-6. I mean, they're playing good football. They were able to really beat down on the Browns. The offense came alive in that second half there. And there's a potentiality that they can make a playoff spot because, like, them, the Packers, the Seahawks, the Vikings, all at 6-6. And so 4 teams fighting for 2 spots. Be interesting to see what happens down the stretch. Another team I'm kind of going to leave in mid, at the very end of mid, is Raiders. I think they've been playing very good football of late. They just haven't been able to get the results they wanted in the past couple games. Had the bye week, so not really much else to say there. So I think the Raiders are going to be there in mid. Miami, moving you up to Super Bowl contender for now. The only reason why is because the Chiefs dropped from there. But I just gotta say, you guys continue to beat on bad teams. I'm still waiting to see you really dominate a good opponent again. But right now, that offense is starting to heat up again, which is a very good sign for you. So keep on Miami. You're playing well. Tua's playing good. Tyreek Hill, I think, should be MVP as he's closing on 2,000 yards receiving, which is absolutely insane to me. So right now, Miami, Super Bowl contender. Another team going to be in wild card is the Vikings. I mean, not really much else to say. I mean, you do get Justin Jefferson back. That should help your offense, should help Josh Dobbs a lot. But you got to wonder if Dobbs' magic is running out, if Jaren Hall might take over. But right now, you're still in a wild card. I just think it'd be very interesting down the stretch for you as we just don't know how your quarterback play is going to be, if that's going to be enough to get you above teams like the Packers, the Rams, even the Seahawks potentially. So you're going to be there in wild card. Tanking, New England, one of the worst teams of football. They scored 0 points, and their defense only gave up 6 points. That's how bad this offense has been. Either doesn't matter if it's Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones, nothing is getting done for them, and it is a very crying shame. And then that's going to be Bill Belichick's last year, and he's sucking. So you got to think they're going to take a quarterback in this draft. That's how bad they are. Next up is the Saints. I'm putting mid there at 5-7. They were able to come back and make a very good game against the Lions after being down 21-0. Gotta give props for that. Derek Carr got injured again, so Jameis Winston came in. Not really much else to say. You're kind of just bleh. So that's why you're in the mid tier. Next up, we got the New York Giants, who are in bad on a bye week, 4-8. They've been playing some decent football with Tommy DeVito, which is pretty surprising. But you got the Packers coming in on Monday Night Football next week. They're red hot. Don't really anticipate you guys continuing that down the stretch, but not bad. You're definitely the better New York City team. So, because the Jets, oh my goodness, I am half tempted to put you down in tanking tier because that's how bad you have played these past 2 weeks. So it doesn't matter what quarterback you put in. Your offense is doing jack nothing. Your defense held the Falcons to 13 points. That should be enough for a decent offense to win the game. And you couldn't do anything. You're wasting another year of that defense because you did not have a backup plan for if Rodgers went down. And that is the biggest problem you have. Shame on you. Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, who are still in Super Bowl contender for me, even after they got completely dominated by the 49ers. Mainly because the NFC is pretty weak. And I think they're going to take this and learn a lot from it. Be able to come back against the 49ers again later in the playoffs and really set the tone there. But Philly, you got your butt whooped. That's all I'm going to say, and you're down there. You're not number one anymore. Next up, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another one of these 7-5 AFC teams in the wild card spot that might fall down here soon because they're just been very lucky, to be honest. They got stomped by the Cardinals of all teams, so you're still in wild card, but I don't anticipate you being there for very much longer because you're just not a very good team. Seattle, another 6-6 NFC team, played pretty well against Dallas, all things considered. Your offense really showed out there. Geno looked incredible. DK Metcalf was really, really good. And so I think that you're doing pretty well there. So, but 6-6 right now after the loss. LA and Green Bay leapfrogged you in the standings. And you got a really tough schedule. You got the 49ers twice in 3 weeks. And you got the Eagles. So you might be coming down here soon unless you can pull an upset or two. But you're still playing pretty decent football. Next up, the new number one team. I don't care. They got 3 losses. If you dominate the Eagles like that, the way the 49ers did, you're number one. I don't care. They have been, ever since that bye week, they have been dominating opponents. Good ones at that too, with especially the Jaguars and now the Eagles. They almost dropped 50 points on the Eagles. Brock Purdy is orchestrating this offense really well. Deebo Samuels are playing great. Christian McCaffrey's playing great. And that defense has been playing good football as well. So San Francisco, you're my number one team in this power ranking this week. And it's honestly not even close with that performance you gave. So good on you, San Fran. Good on you. Next up is Tampa Bay, who I'm putting in mid. They're 5-7. They're only a game back of the NFC South title. They did barely beat the Panthers. I will say that. That's why they're at the very bottom of the mid. But they're still in contention for a playoff spot with that both in the wild card and NFC South race. So Tampa Bay, not bad. Tennessee and Washington, both kind of putting in bad here. Tennessee took the Colts to overtime, so they played pretty good football. And then Washington is Washington. They got blown out by the Dolphins, but most bad teams do. Your defense sucks. Sam Howell has not been playing that great recently. So that is my tier list this week. In Super Bowl contender, got San Francisco, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Miami. Division, I got Detroit, Kansas City, Jacksonville, Atlanta. Wild card is Dallas, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Houston, Green Bay, Minnesota. Mid, I got Buffalo, Los Angeles Rams, Seattle, Cincinnati, Denver, Vegas, New Orleans, Tampa Bay. Bad, I got the LA Chargers, Tennessee Titans, Chicago, Washington, New York Giants, New York Jets. Then tanking, I got Arizona, New England, and Carolina. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more. I'll be back tomorrow with my NFL picks for Week 14. See you around.